You're listening to Lighthouse Conversations, brought to you by Lighthouse Haven, a spiritual home for your awakening soul. Lighthouse Conversations is a show where awakening souls gather to be inspired, connected, and enlightened. Spiritual spark plug and host Chelly Canales, that's me, will guide you through the twists and turns of your journey to a safe haven where you are finally free to live your best light. Each episode contains a conversation with a guest who has gone through a spiritual awakening, detailing their unique and life-changing experiences in an intimate and candid way. Although everyone's experience is as unique as they are, we all share one common thread. We're all seeking something. So, come join us on this journey and be prepared to leave with resources that will supercharge you into inspired action. Here's today's episode. Hello, awakening souls. Happy almost 4th of July weekend. Who would have thought way back in March that we'd still be, in pandemic mode in July? And honestly, we're going to be here for a while. It's, not going anywhere anytime soon. And all we can do is do our best in the moment with the time that we're given and the situations that we're given. So, question for you, if your body could speak to you, what would it say? I ask you that because my guest on this show today is Meredith, and her book, The Language Your Body Speaks, is an amazing look into how our physical self gives us a lot of information about what's going on with our soul. And if we can learn to speak that language, how we are able to connect the dots. So she thinks of it kind of like that sense of knowing, what's going on with us it's like a sense that we were born with, but it's an instrument that hasn't been tuned yet. In fact, she says the biggest part of healing is cultivating what is needed to play the music of your soul on the instrument of your body. So in this interview and through her book, you'll learn some great techniques to start a dialogue with your body and to get curious, try some things, and just experiment what it means to learn the language of energy. Here's today's episode. And welcome to the show, Meredith. I'm so happy that you're here.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to join you, Chelly.
It has been such a delight reading your book, which we'll get into, The Language That Your Body Speaks. The name itself just kind of sends chills down my spine already because it feels so in alignment with what I've always kind of known and believed. Before we dive into your journey of your awakening and how you got to writing this book, quickly, what does the language that your body speaks really mean?
Okay, so your body and mind and spirit speak a language that is a word is energy. And it's not the energy that scientists talk about, little protons and neutrons, although that's part of it. It really is the energy that enlivens us. It's consciousness itself. And it's built in. I'm just underneath the surface of your awareness. We've had this constant conversation going on. So if we can learn to tune into that and speak the body's own language, we can change things that aren't working. We can participate in how the mind and the body enact the soul's purpose. We have a lot more ability to dance in if we're not foreigners in our own bodies. And
Yeah. It's so great to hear somebody address this in such detail, because I know for years I've gone to the doctor, my family's been to the doctor, my friends, and said, I know there's something wrong with me, but yet they keep telling me I'm fine. And so it's not addressing these most essential pieces of ourselves. So we'll get into that. But so tell me about your journey, Ellen. I want to hear how you got to this point where you're able to share such wisdom in terms of helping people truly understand the language of their body.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I sort of awakened accidentally 40 some years ago, maybe almost 50 years ago now. I am a writer, and I was finishing a novel and sort of looking for inspiration. And I think that's the first thing that is important about awakening is you kind of have to ask some questions. You have to be looking inward to see what's there, because otherwise we tend to miss it. There's always stuff going on that we filter out. But I was looking for inspiration, and my grandmother, who's dead, showed up behind me and with a message. And I'd never thought of such a thing. I was from Michigan. We didn't we didn't do those things there. But it intrigued me. So I wrote the message down, and it was loving, and just basically telling me not to be like her. Lived a very unhappy life. She was very, very, very fat, and was really closed in by that her whole life. And she said, "Don't do it the way I did it. Do it differently." And I thought, well, that's a really nice message. And she said a few other things. Then about 2 days later, there was a knock on the door, and a person that I barely knew was at the door saying, "I'm going to a psychic fair in Hope, Michigan. Do you want to come?" And it was just, it was just that synchronicity. And I think when we are ready to awaken, we do have a lot of synchronicity, a lot of just weirdo woo-woo things happen that we're not expecting. It unfolds like a flower unfolds from the seed or something. You don't have to make it happen. It's just once the conditions are right for that seed to unfold, it does.
Oh, yes.
Right? So I said, sure, why not? I'll go. I've never been. I'd never thought of such a thing. So I went off to this psychic fair, and I sat down. It was in a spiritualist church, and they had little $5 readings in the basement of this church. It was really funny. They had a potluck. It was really awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, I did too. I was just like, oh my God, this is so fun. And so I sat down for my $5 reading, and the woman looked at me and she said, "Your maternal grandmother is standing behind you, and she has a message for you." And
She's
yeah,
back.
I know. She repeated the exact message I had written down.
Amazing.
Isn't that
She's
something?
really wanting to get through to you.
Yeah, and I just thought, I mean, I was such a brat. The first thing I said was, "Well, I already got that message. Doesn't she have another one?"
I know you've got some other wisdom for it.
Yeah, but then I said, no, I'm just joking, because I was just so taken aback. I said, okay, tell me something. Do you think you're reading my mind because I already got that message? Or do you really believe my dead grandmother standing behind me? And she said, I give her credit. She said, it's my belief system that it's your grandmother who's standing behind you, and she's giving you a message, and you get lots of messages that you just don't quite receive, that you're not listening to. And I said, well, how can I hear them? And she said, okay, just slow down and listen. Now, I am not a type A personality. I might be like a C plus or something. I lived in my pajamas in those days. I was kind of a sloth. But a couple days later, I was cleaning my house, a very unusual activity for me at that age. And in my brain, I saw this ticker tape of letters going by. And I thought, gee, I wonder if it says anything. Just like on the old stock market, they used to have the ticker tape, right? I don't know if you're old enough to.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I went to the typewriter, as it was in those days, and I typed each letter, and it was a message from my inner teachers. And they said, we're here, we're going to teach. It wasn't my grandmother at that point. It was a group consciousness that I called my council. And they explained who they were. They said they were going to train me and teach me. And all I had to do was tune in, and they would guide me into understanding their realm. Well, I was hooked, right? I mean,
yeah.
Talk about great imaginary friends. And I didn't think they were imaginary. There was an energy to it that felt very real. It's the same feeling you get when your creativity is really cooking, that kind of aha,
yes,
inspired feeling. It was a heightened sense of energy. So it felt very, very true. And they interpreted a dream, and they kind of gave me some evidence that it wasn't. I don't even like to use the phrase just my imagination, because my imagination being activated by a consciousness or an intelligence greater than me. And so they said, we'll train you. And I said, great, sounds awesome. And they started training me. And it was very intensive. Every day I'd sit down, and I would channel messages or lessons. And then my whole life would explode with evidence of that lesson. I'd have to write it in 3D, right? It wasn't, I didn't just get to write the words down. I had to actually embody it and learn it and experience it.
Oh, that is one of my greatest lessons right now. It's so funny you say that, because my word for 2020, before even all of this pandemic and stuff happened, was union. The part of myself that's upper chakras, loves to live in the clouds, big visionary, have all the ideas, but none of that matters if you're not embodying, if you're not bringing it into the world.
Right. Yeah, if your body doesn't get the memo, you can have all the great thoughts and have all the spirituality you want, and your body can be sick and sodden and feeling like
Yes.
crap, which mine was for many years. What happened was one day they came in and they said, "You're going to be moving to California, and in the process of that, you're going to get very sick. And as you heal, you'll become a healer. You'll be trained or awakened as a healer." And again, it was like, really? Okay. I didn't have an agenda about it one way or the other. It was just kind of, it was more interesting. I was teaching university then, and it was way more interesting than grading papers.
Right.
So it was like, okay, this is cool. And so I did end up moving to California. I got a teaching job out here. in California now. And I did get sick. And I couldn't, it was stuff that I could have I couldn't heal it. I just couldn't figure out what to do. So I went to a doctor, and the doctor, said, there's nothing medically wrong with you. There's nothing I can do for you, the normal story.
Right.
But I give her credit. Well, she also diagnosed me with malaise, which means discomfort. And I was like so angry that I had to pay $80 to be told I was uncomfortable.
Yeah, I
when
could
I
have
walk
told
in
you that.
saying, I'm uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Right? My gut
Yes.
doesn't work. And there were a lot of symptoms, and they weren't lovely. And she said, but I'm going to send you to a complimentary medical practitioner who can help you. She's a chiropractor, and she did something called applied kinesiology. I don't know if this is too long. I can speed the story
please.
quite a bit.
Keep going.
But I think what's helpful to people is these things unfold. Again, it's the seed unfolding in you. Once you open to it, water it a little bit, go along with some of the weirder stuff to just see what it is. It will usually resolve itself into making sense. So I went to see this healer. She helped me a lot. But I was enchanted because I learned a lot about Chinese medicine. She used meridians, and it was called applied kinesiology. And it's kind of the root of the muscle testing a lot of people are doing and all of that. And all of a sudden, but what was weird was as I would go in, I could tell before she energy tested or muscle tested what was out on me. Because I could look at her and look at, like, I don't know what this organ here is called, but mine is puke green and yours is forest green. So I think mine's not working very well. And she'd test it, and sure enough, it would be out of balance. And I could look at the supplements on her wall. She had a whole wall of supplements. And I'd look up there and I go, I need the fourth one from the right. And I need 2 a day, morning and night with food. And she'd energy test. And sure enough, that's what the test would show.
That's what it is.
And I so didn't know I could do this. I mean, and I feel like a lot of us don't know what we can do because we don't try. We don't even ask the questions. We don't try. And in my book, I talk a lot about just play with this, see what comes up when you try it. And I take very much that approach because I don't believe that energy healing, energy channeling, any of it is a special psychic ability. I really believe it's built into the equipment. It is part of the language your body speaks. It is built into your equipment, just like your senses are. And if you have any senses at all, if you can see, hear, smell, taste, feel, or know something, then you have abilities to receive information and codify it. Your brain can interpret it and you can pull it in. And the way I know this is if I say, picture your mother or imagine your mother, it doesn't even have to be picture. Some people will hear her voice, some will picture her. She's not there, but you're perceiving her.
Right.
We do have this inner ability that is also inner senses. And that is the part of the spectrum that gets activated with so-called psychic phenomenon, where we're reading other people, picking it up. We're really using our instrument in the way it was designed to be used, but we didn't come with a user's manual.
No. And society, in fact, tries to have us not tune into those things. Don't trust yourself. You have this authority figure that you must go through in order to get your answers. And so it just hasn't been tuned. It hasn't been played.
Right. And because it hasn't been, we don't activate it. But it's like the capacity for language. We learn language that's built in, but you learned English because the people around you were speaking some English to you, right?
Right.
And so we do need to be immersed in situations where we are exposed to using our awareness in new ways and just trying it on for size, and it will evolve. It develops. And so my book talks a lot about how do you develop your ability to perceive energies and to speak using energy as your language. And it's a very 3D language. It includes gesture, image, sound, rhythm, movement, lots and lots of things that, unless you're really Italian, you don't use when you're talking. I talk with my hands all the time.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. So that was my interest in writing this book, was translating my experience away from this weird woo-woo thing. I mean, I became a professional channel. I've been channeling 36 plus years now. I've had a professional practice. I've seen clients all over the world. I've taught classes. I have a healing practice, and I train healers, all of that stuff. But it's not, and yeah, I'm pretty gifted because I've developed it. Just like someone who plays the cello plays better than you do if you don't. You know what I mean? It's like, if you practice, if you work with it, you have a little bit of a gift for it, you can develop it. And so I'm really big on saying this isn't some special thing that we have to have spokespeople who bring us home to ourselves. I really believe the subtitle of the book is called Self-Healing with Energy Medicine. It is about how do we use this for ourselves, not how do we pay someone week after week a whole lot of money to help us manage our own body, body spirit communications.
This self-empowerment piece of it is so helpful. And I think the way you do break it down into a lot of 5 senses type exercises, you bring it down to earth in a way that is a bridge, and I feel like there's a lot of the work that's happening right now and stuff that I'm creating as well it's just like, how do we bring that intangible something that, like you said, that woo-woo that maybe some people in the general public are not necessarily comfortable with, into a space where they can clearly understand it and not feel like it's outside of the realm of what they can experience. It's very much something that they can experience. So it's wonderful that you're able to provide healing as a practitioner, and you're saying, here's this guidebook. Let's give you the tools you need so that you can become the foremost authority on your body.
Right, right. And one of the things I start right out with is thinking outside the box, because the box in our culture is to see yourself in medical terms, like as this bag of chemistry with these processes that have been well defined, and to think very anatomically and to think in certain ways. And those are all fine if you are trained in medicine and you have, and you're a chemist and you can analyze and figure out what's going on. Although really not, because even chemists can't manage their own body's chemistry very well. It's just too much. It's too complex. But if you really understand that it's a language, and we shift the paradigm from it's all about communication. It isn't about medical processes. Sure, you can describe it that way, but like, I wouldn't ask you to explain a Shakespeare sonnet to me using chemistry. That's not the best language, but you can explain it in a different way. You can say, for example, with literature or language, we say, what's being expressed here and how is it being expressed and what's needed for better communication. So when we want to participate in our own well-being, we have to stop the medical model of what's wrong and how do I fix it. That's our culture, is what's wrong. I go to the doctor, they diagnose what's wrong, and how do I fix it? You don't go to the doctor because you're feeling great.
Right. Or how do I feel more great?
Yeah, how do I feel more great? Or let's understand the nature of this greatness. Right. So every time, energy follows whatever you give attention to. And so if you give attention to what's wrong, how do I fix it? Your body keeps saying, oh, well, how about this? And what about this? And this is wrong. And you never get to put your attention and considerable powers into cultivating what's needed and what's right and what's fulfilling and what's an expression of your wiser self and your spirit. And so a lot of times people think in terms of healing, I've got to get rid of my blockages. I hear this a lot. Healing is about clearing your blockages. And there's nothing wrong with clearing blockages. I mean, if my nose is full, I like to blow my nose so I can breathe. There's nothing wrong with clearing blockages, but that's not the biggest part of healing. The biggest part of healing is cultivating what is needed to play the music of your soul on the instrument of your body. That
is beautiful. And it just makes me feel more like I have a say in what my body is experiencing, and not just like a victim to whatever circumstance happens to be going on with my body. And it's funny because in the book, you use the word a couple of times that I've used for myself for the longest time, which is logjam. Like, what is the logjam? And so how is clearing a logjam different than like clearing energy blocks? Is it what's that process like?
Okay, so clearing a logjam, as I say, is a piece of it, and it's good because, we have log jams all over our body. We poop and, out it goes. We
Exactly.
sneeze and out it goes. I mean,
Uh-huh.
things get log jammed physically, energetically, etc. So it's really good to be able to have some techniques. You can tap an area, you can move the energy with your hands. There's a lot of ways to move stuck energy. But even more important then is energy moves in circuits, it moves in patterns, it responds to environment. There's things that we're each unique. We're each totally different from each other. This notion that there's one generic body or one generic self and that we can just fix it following these rules that someone lays down for us, that's not true. The thing that's going to float your boat is so different from what's going to float my boat. And if we want the boat to float so we can navigate, then we have to sort of cultivate, well, what are the waterways of our body? What are the ways energy moves and needs to move and can move? And what are the themes? And energy is not, I'm going very fast, but energy is not neutral. It has meaning. Consciousness itself has meaning. It's not neutral.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So when we have symptoms, the body is talking to us. When we have an event in our life that was unexpected and kind of blocks us, life is talking to us through those symptoms. It speaks through sensations, through symptoms, through events, through drawing our attention to something, and both positive and negative. I mean, we tend to go for what hurts, what hurts, what hurts. We don't go, wow, this really makes me feel great. I'm going to do more of that. Like every time I pull out my crayons and color, I feel so happy.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, it's, oh yeah, didn't that make me feel good when I did that 3 months ago? We tend to always emphasize the what's wrong because it is a cultural mantra. So one thing about clearing a logjam is, you have to get energy moving, but it has to have space to move. And so sometimes you just need to do exercises that open up the space for the energy to move.
Would you be willing to talk us through an exercise? Maybe one of the, I guess we could say a logjam exercise. So say I have a pain in my lower right side and I've had it forever and it's never gotten diagnosed. And if I wanted to tune into that energy, is there maybe one of the many, because you offer so many fantastic ways to get in there?
Okay. So one thing you can do is, and everybody can do this with me unless you're driving, in which case do it later.
Do it later.
Do it later.
Disclaimer, everybody.
Heavy machinery, don't do it now. But put your hand wherever your attention is called. It might be somewhere where you've got pain, and it might be somewhere that your attention is just called there for some reason, right?
Okay.
And so then with your other hand, so put your hand on that area, and with the other hand, just tune into that place a second with both hands, first the hand that's touching it, and then with your other hand, tap a rhythm that you think is needed. Now, you can tap on the place itself, but like I've got my hand on the back where you said, and it's not easy to tap there.
Right.
You can just tap it on the table in front of you or on your knee or somewhere else on your body. My hand, I put my hand where you said where there was a blockage, just because I'm a copycat. And but everybody out there, find your own place.
Find your place. Yep.
But I want to tap on my heart for some reason. Someone else might want to tap at their throat or on their forehead or on the tip of their nose. And just go with whatever your intuition tells you, but find a rhythm that it wants to tap. I don't know if you can hear my rhythm.
I can, yeah. Yep, I'm doing mine. It's a little bit syncopated, I think. A little.
Yeah, I'm not going to keep doing mine because I'll interfere with yours. But you can tap for a few minutes and it starts to transform the energy in that part of your body. You can also go in and investigate and say, what color is this pain here? And is it the color it needs to be? And if it's not, you can start to morph it towards the color it wants to be. Just take it through the rainbow from, if it's angry dark red, you can bring it down to heart red and then to kind of pinky red and then down to, wherever you feel it wants to go. And the trick is not to try to be manipulative,
right?
To be in dialogue. I talk in the book about a concept that I call energy dialogue. And it's a conversation. your body says something, you say something, but you're speaking energy. You're not talking English to it. You're not saying, go away. I don't know why you're hurting. I don't know what you want. Tell me, tell me. It will tell you through energetic language of, is it tight or is it loose? Is it angry or is it kind of too dispersed? Is it, what can we characterize? What can we use from our senses to characterize it? What flavor is it? If it were an animal, what animal would it be and what would it need? We can take it into how we know how to interpret energetic phenomena and start to shift it.
And I love that you really focus on what does it mean to you? It doesn't necessarily have to be, the colors that we normally associate with chakras are the colors that are absolutely going to work for you. Or the meaning behind what a book has told you is not necessarily what that same meaning is for the way you interpret energy. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, absolutely. Because first of all, you can be pretty sure your chakras didn't read that book.
Right.
So they may not be speaking the language in the way that the person who wrote that book perceives it. I mean, we know this from English. Or any language we speak. It's very individual. We do have some things we both understand as we're talking, or we couldn't communicate. But words take on meaning as we experience them. When a child learns the word for up, for example, it means a lot of different things. It's not just a preposition of place. It means, I want to go up in my mom's arms, or I want to get up to eye level with the adults, or I want to eat and I want to get up in my high chair or something. And those are called holo phrases. It's actually, I talk a lot about how language develops in kids as we develop this one, because I try to provide a total immersion experience for learning the languages, read the book. And so these holo phrases of meaning are just packed with meaning. And most of us have, you said the word that's been speaking to you a lot is log jam. And a word that's been speaking a lot to me lately is consolation. That word just feels yummy to me.
Yeah.
And I just need it, and I need to unpack it, and I need to invoke it a lot for various reasons. And you'll have your reasons for log jam. And if we can really evolve our own holo phrases, our own core vocabulary, and then build from there, it's true. And what happens is that we are so schooled to treat external authority as more true than our own inner authority.
Yes.
I mean, right from the get-go, right? Parents know best, and then teachers know best, and doctors know best, and society knows best. And, now we're seeing that there's some problems with that ability to, that tendency to take authority where it isn't earned.
Right. Oh, yes.
So part of the process of learning to heal yourself is to just show up for yourself, to come home, develop that inner authorship or authority. We're a culture that wants right answers. It's not about I have to get the right answer first try. It's that if I dialogue with my body over time, I'm going to learn how she talks, and I'm going to learn how to respond to her. Right?
Yeah.
So I will understand if she uses words in a funny way or pain in a funny way. And over time, we get shortcuts with each other. My body can tell me with a little flutter what she needs, and she doesn't have to go into a full-fledged migraine.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so I want to talk more about this whole, we've been taught to trust the authorities over our own knowingness. And I feel, based on this big cultural shift that's happening right now, it's an energetic shift. I think the world is having a spiritual awakening in greater numbers than ever before. The rug's been pulled out from them through this pandemic. And suddenly you're having to, like you said, self-reflect, look inside, and suddenly it's uncharted territory. And like you said, we like to say, yes, I got the right answer. I got the A. I have everything in order. Do you think this is something that is going to shift, like in the healthcare industry, as we go through this process, to where the whole of the person and the energetic body of the person is also brought to the table, and not just here are the symptoms and here are the prescribed ways of healing them?
Gosh, I hope so.
Me too.
What my teachers have said for several years is that we're in an era where whatever is not sustainable will collapse, explode, fall apart, fall away, or just fail us. And that's what we're seeing, that all of the institutions in our society that aren't sustainable, including the economy, including the healthcare system, including the communication pathways and the way we use communication, including the ways we get our authority from people who are just really giving opinions and not rooting it in experience or larger truth. All of that is unsustainable, and we're seeing the effects of that. But meanwhile, we're staying home and we're doing something that I call gestating yin. There's yin
yes.
and yang. Yang is do, and yin is about the ground of being. It's about that inner heartbeat. The yin organs work 24/7 and run the body, like the heart and the lungs and the kidney and the liver and they all work 24/7 to keep the life force pumping within us. And so if we can't be young, if we can't be out there overdoing it, which most of us were, even those of us in the spiritual realm were overdoing it and overstimulated, our instruments were so unable to talk to us because of too much stimulation, too much noise, too many storylines. We did not evolve to handle 100 storylines a day rather than what's happening right here in the neighborhood. That's been an exponential growth in the last 20, 30 years. And it is the instrument of the body is meant to express what the mind, what I call the talking self, is thinking about and doing. But if she's doing 40 different stories at once, what is the body supposed to do with that? And so our bodies are getting very befuddled and very clogged and very polluted, just like the body of the earth. And so what happens, we stay home, pollution comes down. We can't overdo it so much. We have to go inward. And what I think is lovely is the rise of creativity. People are not just binge watching Netflix 24/7. There is a lot of watching going on, but more, there's people saying, what do I have to share with the world? It's a great equalizer. Everybody's putting out their own content on the web, and we have a web of energetic connections. Apart from the internet, we have an energetic web that we're all interconnected, and the internet kind of mimics that. So as we recognize, hey, the quality of life here is up to us. The better the stuff is that I put out, the less polluted this shared web of thoughts and ideas and understandings is going to be. So, we're learning a lot about how to recognize that what we put out influences people. And not just droplets, but everything, everything we put out influences people. And so it's a wonderful kind of pressure cooker for yin. I mean, to really gestate that empowered yin, or that, the sacred feminine is kind of rising again after
that's right.
a long time of imbalance with the patriarchal stuff. And so it has to change, because the earth has said to us, hey, you guys, you think you can destroy me, but watch, I can take you out in a few weeks. I can say I got more viruses where that one came from.
Right.
I got plenty of viruses, and I got plenty of other illnesses. And what's happening is that the reason people are so vulnerable to this virus is that our natural alignment with the communication forces of the earth has been so disrupted because of pollution and bad soil and just basically trashing our environment in every way possible, that we as individuals have lost our resilience, our ability to filter out what needs to be filtered out and pull in what needs to be pulled in. So we have to reconnect with that. And that's what a lot of people are doing. Bless everybody's sweethearts.
I know. And as far as challenging and difficult it is for many ways, it's also a beautiful gift in terms of having that time to reconnect with yourself. I've been calling it the void space, like for me. And I'm such a go-getter that this void space has been practice of patience for me, because I think, well, this is the time to really get your work out because it relates to all of this. Get it out. And I realize if the energy isn't right, though, if it's not in alignment, it's not coming through in a channeled and authentic way. I'm not receiving the messages, because I know, what it feels like to be connected and what it feels like to just put something out for putting something out's sake. Right. So working with that energy is everything. And I've learned a lot about it even more during this time. I was just thinking about, if your book came out 20 or 30 years ago, what do you think the reaction would have been? Because, the healthcare is it's gotten better. But I mean, if you think about where we can still go, what were we like in the 80s, right?
Right. Well, actually, in the 80s, there was a little bit of a flourishing of complementary medicine. So it might have gotten some traction. Although I did put a book out in the 80s, which was a channeled book called Listening In: Dialogues with the Wiser Self. And it didn't go very far. Now it's taken off again. I mean, it's had a renaissance. It's a channeled book. But at the time, people weren't quite ready for a channeled book of that sort. And so I think if my book had come out then, it would have been a novelty item. It would have been kind of like meditation books. But there were a lot of wonderful books that came out, like Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. There were, all through that era. But now we're reaching kind of a critical mass where enough people are waking up, and it's the you can take credit for it, or you could just say, wow, enough seeds have started to pop, maybe shift the metaphor and say it's like popcorn, right? You get the heat to the right level and all of a sudden,
that's it.
Pop, 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 pop. And so I feel that people are waking up. They're on schedule, that somehow this was kind of a planned awakening, and that the events on our planet are helping us to do that. And sometimes we do it through pain and through inconvenience. And it's really important to have real compassion for the people who are suffering, but not to suffer their suffering.
Yes, right? I'm dealing with that quite often. How do you not tune into the collective at all times and try to heal that for them? There's a way to hold your own energy in your own space so that the work you can create will actually help people, and you won't be in that same energy.
Right. You're not bogged down from it. And, there's a lot of people putting out stuff, and I bless everybody who's putting out stuff to help. But there is this sort of tendency to, are you scared? Are you feeling bad? Are you isolated? And bringing, again, the negatives, and how can we help you with that? And that's one approach, but that is the old kind of talk therapy model of let's focus on what's wrong every week and see if we can move you out of it. And there's another thing you can do in addition to addressing what's wrong, which is cultivating what needs to be right.
That's it.
Are you looking for something you can do today that will illuminate your experience? If you're not living the virus in your body, what do you want to live instead? If we have a shared web of energies, what would you like to gift to the web? What would you like to put out to the world? And probably it's not a discussion of your anxiety or your worries or, unless it's your total reality and you need help with that.
Yeah.
But in a way, the expectation that we're all going to feel terrible because we're staying home safe and sound, we have to really recognize it's like a split screen ability to have amazing compassion and reach out, do whatever you can for those who are actually suffering, but not to turn your reality into suffering if that's not the real truth of your reality. It might be inconvenient because you don't have as much toilet paper as you'd like to have stashed or something, but to really get it that this is an opportunity to contribute what you are capable of. And it's almost like a privilege. If I am privileged not to be sick with the virus right now, if I am privileged not to have a chronic depression that got triggered by reading too much news, if I'm privileged to know how to turn the news off and not feel like I have to follow every bit of it, I can pay attention as a good citizen, but I don't have to eat and drink it 24/7, and I certainly don't need it with my meals. If I'm that privileged, then what do I want to create as a gift? Even for my friends, even for my 10 or 15 friends. And then what do I want to do as a gift to the world? Not as a get ahead kind of publicity, like now I got to put out all this work because I got to promote my career, because we were all compulsively promoting our careers. And you sort of have to sit back and think, well, who's the audience? There is so much stuff proliferating. Who has time to watch?
So much stuff.
Yeah.
It's an overload for sure.
Yeah. So it's not about what can I put out. It's really about what can I take in and process and share and do justice to. It's a whole different way of consuming that isn't consumerism at all, that is appreciation. And what happens is that when we start to take something in and appreciate it, its energy deepens and it gets richer, and it feeds right back to the soul. I mean, it enriches the soul, but it enriches other people's souls as well. So does that make sense?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yes, it really speaks to the heart of what's going on right now. And thank you for that wise take on it, because I think if we can all do our best to adopt that mentality, this is going to be a lot kinder and gentler of a time than it has been. That's wonderful. Before we go, I have so enjoyed this, by the way. I want to know if there's any last thoughts on the book you'd like to share. And plus, if people would like to get a hold of you to learn more about your work, how can they do that?
Okay. I think the last thought I want to give is that energy is our first language. Energy is kind of our mother tongue. And we did know it as infants. Long before we learned to speak, we are perceiving energies and trying to sort them out. So it is your birthright. And I really encourage people to claim that and learn it and explore it and have fun with it. And you can read more about my work at my website, www.ellenmeredith.com, and that's MEREDITH.com. And I also want to mention that I have a YouTube channel. It's Energy Medicine with Ellen Meredith. And I've just posted a couple weeks ago an 8 video class for free on how to use energy medicine self-help tools to enhance your immunity, to really build up strength. And it's great for people who want to avoid the coronavirus. I've had some feedback from people who had coronavirus and used it to get better, and it helped reinstate them much more quickly to feeling themselves again. And it's good for other things. It's not energy. Treatment isn't about here's what's wrong, let's treat it. It's about let's strengthen the energetic communications that run the body, that form us, that fuel us, and organize us. Let's do that. And how can we? So it's good for everybody, whether or not you're really worried about virus at this point. So it's out there. It's free. It's fun to play with.
Oh, I'm definitely checking it out. Your work speaks to me so deeply. I've worked with Reiki before, and that's like the energy work that had the official name to it that I was doing, but I've worked with it in so many different ways in my life. And so to see the way that you put this into very practical and digestible ways, it's such a gift, because I think a lot of people are going to have access to things that they did not know that they could have access to before. So thank you for sharing your gift.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a delight. And I thank you for enjoying my book.
You got it. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for listening to Lighthouse Conversations. If this show resonates with you, it would mean so much to have you rate, review, and share. Don't forget to follow us at chellycanales.com and on social media.